Hey, what is up? You're listening to the TouchArcade Show bonus edition. I'm your host, your main man, Brad Nicholson. Today I'm joined by the bearded one, Jared Nelson. How you doing, man?
Hi, Brad.
And two very special guests. Today we're talking with the two men behind Team Meat, Edmund and Tommy. How you guys doing?
Howdy.
Very well.
I wanted to talk about all sorts of stuff with you guys today. And maybe we should start off with some comments you made a long time ago when the App Store was a little bit more wily than what it is now, for sure. Because I know you think that some people are kind of confused about what you've said in the past, so maybe we can kind of clear the air here at the opening of this podcast.
It's a reoccurring theme that people are confused about stuff that we've said.
Yeah, that's kind of our thing.
It's not exactly their fault, because I blame, bad press people.
Oh, great. Now that's the headline. Thank you. We're, a minute into the show, and already it's journalists ruined our lives.
Report, bad press people.
That's the headline.
Oh, great. And then I just said journalists ruined our lives, so it's going to be me that said it and not you. Great.
You guys should have stuck.
I'm so glad we did this interview.
You guys should have stuck with the original plan of just saying two crazy words.
I know. I overstepped my bounds.
But you've commented on the App Store before, even criticized it, which is understandable at the time because there was a lot of crazy stuff happening in the earlier days, and now that stuff's kind of coming back to you as you prepare at least one game now for the iPhone, Mew-Genics. And I know you guys kind of wanted to address that a little bit because you saw some confusion out there.
What I said a long time ago, what was it, 4 years ago, 3 years ago?
Yeah,
it was
4 years ago.
It was 2009, so it was 4 years ago. Awesome.
Wow. Yeah, right? I suddenly feel
I
very
never
old.
thought that thing that I made up in the hotel room we'd still be talking about 4 fucking years ago. But, so what I said, and at that time it was very true, is you had tons and tons of large companies like Sega and Capcom and all these places that saw that people were buying games on this platform, so instead of trying to make new content for the platform, they just decided to port their old games to the platform and throw a virtual controller on them. Mm-hmm. And my whole argument was that this was Tiger handheld versions of these games because they really weren't playable or enjoyable, because no one beat Sonic the Hedgehog on their iPhone. Nobody beat Mega Man 2 on their iPhone because it was just there. It was just a way to sell a brand. Everyone kind of took that as me just saying the App Store in general was shit. And I may have said those words, but in context, I was saying it was shit because of those things, because those games were saturating the market. And there were all these games that had nothing to do with the platform, that were nothing, that didn't use the platform in a good way. And by the platform, I mean touchscreen.
Right.
They just sort of ignored the fact that there was a touchscreen and ignored the fact that there were no buttons and still tried to make games the same way that they always had been. And that's wrong. Yeah. Because that's not how you do it. You don't make by the same thinking, you don't make a touchscreen game for the Xbox just the same way as you don't make an Xbox game for a touchscreen. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I feel you there.
And that's basically what I was saying. Not that every app on there is garbage, because it's not. And in the recent years, there have been some pretty good ones that I've enjoyed. I like the Kingdom Rush was amazing. Where's My Water? Stuff that was like, hey, this actually works with this platform, and you can tell that they designed it for the platform, and it's a natural fit for the platform. Stuff like that works well.
Yeah. You
have to respect the platform, and you have to build for the platform, because if you don't, then it just turns into garbage.
And as we've seen over the last 4 years too, because the App Store is so young still. Even it's like we've seen more games that actually look at the strengths of the iPad and iPhone come out, right? They actually use it. They actually use those strengths, as opposed to just throwing virtual buttons on the screen and just puking out a game. Yeah, and that's just, it's not good for anybody, because it lowers consumer confidence, because then they think, oh, well, Metal Slug just came out, I'll get that. And then they get it and they're like, hey bro, I got Metal Slug on this, but then they never play it again. Mm-hmm. And then they just associate games on their phone as just throw away, hey, show your buddies for a second, and then not care. But yeah, so that's what I was saying. Kind of got taken a little bit out of context, and I basically said a whole bunch of people's team that their team sucks, and of course that made me an asshole. Well, we cleared the air, though, right? We just hit a global reset.
Yeah. Hopefully, it'll until somebody
we haven't, because I've said this before several times.
Yeah, what Tommy said originally that'll be like people will take this and they'll poach this, and then they'll make their own news story about it, and then that first one will probably be semi-legitimate, and then someone else will poach that news story and then make it more sensational and cut it down even more, remove more context, and it'll still just divulge down into Tommy says that the App Store sucks.
Yeah, the developers don't know how to develop for it. That's what it's
yeah, whatever the negative thing is. People are really weird on the internet when it comes to criticism of anything, and like people don't understand that it's very constructive criticism. Like, we're not sitting here and just pointing the finger and saying the App Store sucks, here's the reasons why, and we're not doing anything about it. Like, we're actively trying to develop something for it that works. And there's a lot of reasons now why, like, if you want to talk critically about the App Store, there's much better critical things to talk about, and a lot of very horrible and abusive ways that developers and corporations will milk, gamers for cash and give them an empty experience, which is like the primary thing that we're really working against with Mew-Genics, and like not falling into that, because everybody wants the whole thing now is like the gold rush with the App Store. Originally, it was get your games on there because it could be, the next Minecraft could be on there. It could be this huge Angry Birds type situation.
Yeah, it was Angry Birds, one Minecraft on there. But
yeah, and then then the App Store became everything's $1. There's that whole thing, and then the Tiger handheld stuff, and now the whole thing is like, well, the only way to make money on the App Store is by basically abusing people's wallets. And that's like always the big thing. When developers talk, you go to conferences, it's really gross. For people, you hear people talk about it, and it's quite literally like it sounds like drug dealing to children. Like it sounds like, and this is how you do it. And it's such like it's very reminiscent of like gambling, but almost worse in a way, because you don't get anything.
There's
like
no
you get nothing back. You leave with the complete empty experience where you feel like you've basically thrown away some money, and you've gotten what you believe to be what you were going for. It's like what I'm talking about here is like so many games now that are considered big time successful games out there will give you a treadmill to run through, and for the most part, the treadmill to run through is semi compelling. It's a pretty compelling game. But they bait you along with these achievements and upgrades that are just out of reach. And then they basically make you feel stupid, because it's like, well, why? I could just run through this treadmill for another hour, or I could just pay $5 or even $1 and get to that point that I would be if I just ran through for that amount of time. And then eventually you get into the habit of like, okay, well, it's all a psychological thing, because then you accept the fact that you've spent money, and once you spent money, you can justify spending more money. And then eventually you've unlocked everything in the game without actually doing much. And you end the game with like, oh, well, I beat the game, but I didn't really do anything other than pay to beat it.
Right. We're talking about the big chart toppers, too, though. Those are the guys swinging for the fences. Those are the dudes who want millions of dollars a month. But, I just want to bring this up. On the other hand, there are a lot of great niche kind of indie titles on the App Store, like Devil's Attorney, Waking Mars, stuff like that. There are rich experiences to be had, for sure.
I'm not saying that, like, all games are like that on there. Right, but I'm saying, like, this is the new thing.
This is the push that the larger companies, and like it or not, the larger companies are the ones that sort of shape everything still.
Yeah.
Like their influence isn't as grand as it was like 4 years ago, but it's still like you still have an oversaturation of games where you pay for coins to progress in the game. That's kind of a bad thing.
A few years ago, when you were critical of the App Store and you said those things that were all kind of taken out of, blown out of proportion, did you have interest back then to be on the platform?
At the time, no, because I wasn't working on a game that I wasn't actively working on a game that could work on the platform. Like around that time, I was working on Meat Boy, and that was the only thing I was working on. So I didn't see it as, oh, hey, I want to make an iPhone. Like that's the thing is when we approach a game, it's never, oh, we want to make an Xbox game. Oh, we want to make a PlayStation. We want to make an iPhone game. It's we want to make a game and we want to put it out, and then like that's what we go from. Like, oh, like Mew-Genics didn't start out as, hey, you know what we should do? We should make an iPhone game. It's like, no, it's that's not how it started out as, let's make this cat simulator. And then as we were playing it, in the back of our minds, we're like, well, you just use the mouse, so we could probably, this would probably work really well on a touchscreen. And like, that's how that came about. It's just the same thing with like the Meat Boy the game stuff. It was like prototyped in a hotel room, and I'm like, hey, this could work on like a touchscreen, and I think it could be pretty fun. Like there's never any desire to be on any platform. There's just desire to make a game and then put it on platforms that it'll work on.
I know the game's unfinished, and you probably don't want to comment on it too hard, but like Meat Boy the game, like what were you kind of thinking there with that? Is it an auto runner? Like what kind of game is it, or was it?
Well, it's still going, and we're still sort of figuring that out.
Okay.
Because Brandon, we really haven't worked on it. Like all I've done for that game is like started to make an editor, and then we got into Mew-Genics stuff. So. Yeah, there isn't much to talk about with that game.
It's still
the only thing that we can say about Meat Boy the game is that it's not like we've kind of pitched it as a remake, but that's like that's not the word I don't think we want to use, because really it's going to be a totally new Meat Boy, and it's not going to be anything really.
It's not a port.
It's not a port. It's kind of like,
it's not a version of Meat Boy for iOS. It is.
We need a word for it. I don't know.
I don't know what the word is either. Like I'm trying to think of it, because it's not a reboot. Yeah. It's not a sequel.
What better?
It's kind of a re-envisioning.
Yeah, a reimagining.
It's a reimagining of what had happened. The whole thing, like when we started it, we thought it would like coming out on a system like that, and I thought it would be kind of fun to poke fun at the idea of it almost seeming like a corporate game in a way, but I wanted to cuten it up a bit, but I wanted to cuten it up so we could go really dark with it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, okay, I know where you're going with that.
I wanted it to appear more sugary and fluffy and nice, so we could go even darker with it. And because I learned that too with Isaac and stuff, but like because there's different directions I want to go with Meat Boy, and then we talked about a lot of really cool, like, innovative ways to make, a platformer on that system work really well in ways that I haven't ever seen, and I hope we can execute it. If we can't, then we'll just drop it, let everybody down. But it looks really solid on paper, so, once we're done with Mew-Genics...
And our little prototype played pretty well.
Yeah, it worked pretty well.
And that was just done in like a couple days. Like that was like nothing.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. We'll see how it goes. It'll be fun though. Like it's one of those weird things. Like when you're working on a project, you got to try not to be too distracted with other ideas, because we're at a point in Mew-Genics where like it's work. Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff is the foundation's there, and now we just got to work. And then, the fun comes a little later. Like, it's mostly just workload stuff right now. Like, get all this boring stuff done so we can make the game better.
Yeah.
So it's best not to think too much about possibly more exciting things when you're in the heat of just work.
Yeah, because at this point, if I think about something too exciting, I'll stop working on it.
Like, it's really hard not to jump on that. Like, I've seen many other developers. I've worked with people who have a tendency to, like, right when the game becomes work, which is usually like around like the 60% point, it's like suddenly it's just, oh shit, now we've got a shitload of work to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
it's all the fun stuff is kind of behind us and or in front of us, and then they're just like, well, let's just work on a new game. And I worked with somebody, and that one game became like 20 games. It just kept going over. We never released anything, so. It's a good idea to...
Yeah, right now I'm working on 30 different games.
This is a brilliant place probably to take us into Mew-Genics. Since we got you, can you give me the elevator pitch for what the game is, just to kind of hear your spin on it?
We still don't have the damn pitch. Like,
yeah?
It's so complicated. Like, the easiest way would be like Cat Lady Simulation.
Right.
I worry to a certain degree about that because I feel like a lot of people will go in thinking, oh, it's not going to be what they think it is if we say a cat lady simulation. Even if we say a cat breeding simulation, they're going to go in thinking, they're going to go in thinking like something like Sims Pets.
Yeah.
And it's not at all that.
Isn't that what you want, though? You want to knock their socks off with the dark?
I guess maybe. Like our whole thing here is to like bring in everybody who thinks it's going to be this light, fluffy experience, and then they're hit with the hard
and then their cat gets mad and butt slides on their pillow. Like, there you go.
Yeah, it's
enjoy that, Mom.
So wait, hang on. Hold the phone. There is butt sliding in this game. That's confirmed.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right.
They're
wow.
cats.
You guys done your homework on cats when things go wrong.
The other day, Shane and I are sitting there. We're eating dinner, and my cat has this thing where he goes and when he poops, he runs around the house like crazy because he thinks he's in trouble. Because when he poops, not in a litter box, I beat the shit out of him with a magazine. Not hard. You know, I have to be like, don't fucking shit in my office.
His cat is big.
Yeah, my cat.
One of those, like, giant.
Yeah, he's like a Maine Coon giant man. But so the other day, we're sitting up there, we're eating dinner, and he poops and he runs around like crazy, and then he comes and he sits on the on like the ottoman, and then he gets up and there's a little splat of shit on the ottoman from where his asshole touched the ottoman. And that's our elevator pitch for Mew-Genics.
I'm in. I'm sold.
There are lots of poop. There's lots of buttholes. Cats will do cat things. Like that's the whole. You can't sugarcoat cats because that's the beauty of what they are. They're not. They are animals, and they are fine with knowing that they are animals, and you know that they're animals, and they do animal things, and they're just their own little independent creatures that do what they want with their own, personalities and their own hang-ups and everything else, and you're the one that has to deal with it. It's not, you can't, like, as much as you smack a cat around with a magazine, they're still going to do the thing that you don't want them to do.
It's true. He's shit in my office like 5 times.
they might even do it to spite you.
He did. I kicked him out of the bedroom. He's been fine for 3 weeks. I kicked him out of the bedroom the other day. He looks at me, meows, and runs away. And then I wake up the next morning, shit, right next to my paper shredder.
Well, just like with Guppy, like my cat Guppy, he's the strangest of the 4 cats that we have. He had this thing for a very long time. Now we have the auto water dish, but before it was just the static water. And if another cat would knock some food into the water dish, it was contaminated and he would not drink it. But he wanted to make sure you knew that. So what he would do is he would just grab his paw and just pull the water dish over and knock it onto the ground and sit there next to it.
Wow. If it makes you feel better, my cat Hannibal used to do that as well. So what I had to do was I got one of those huge dog water bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just start rocking that. There's no way Hannibal can knock that thing over. It's just like almost...
we have that basically now. It's like that, but it constantly is refreshing itself. Like, the constant running water or whatever. Like what's funny, too, is Tammy, she's the cat from the movie, the hairless one. Tammy has this infatuation with it, and she'll stare at it. She won't drink it. She'll just stare at the water. And that's another thing I noticed, too. So Guppy and... Guppy and Moxie both drink only from the stream of water coming out, but Cricket and Tammy drink from the water that's not coming out. It's just an odd choice, but they both are like, it's just odd. Like,
yeah. I'm building this picture in my mind of a cat lady simulator meets cat observation tank.
That's what it was. Like, that's what our whole early development and still development.
Yeah, it's like a cat ant farm.
Yeah, it's like, it's the whole why does I think the epiphany moment when we were in early development was when we were talking about Guppy. And why is Guppy like that? Like, why is he broken? Like, my cat Guppy is weird. And something had to have happened to him that made him that way. He couldn't have been born that way. Because we actually got him So I used to work animal control. And we got a call for 9 kittens in a planter box that were actually being watered by the gardener that was watering them in this, it was by a theater down in Santa Cruz. and he called it in, and it turned out that there were actually, well, it was a call for 8 cats, and there were 9 cats, and I knew that the cats were all going to get put down because if the mom doesn't come, you're not going to save the kittens. Right. So I ended up bringing the cats over to my wife and saying, "Here, take one," because the call was for, one more than there actually was, so they wouldn't know in record-wise. Mm-hmm. And that was Guppy. And we think that due to his trauma when he was a kitten, he just grew up broken. He's a very weird cat. And then Tommy's like, well, we could do that in the game. We could do a trauma system in the game. And he came up with this elaborate trauma system.
Yeah.
So that's pretty interesting. Like in most Sims, whenever something's broken, it's just broken. You need to get rid of it. But in Mew-Genics, like, is a broken cat like a necessarily bad thing?
We quickly noticed that broken things, like broken animals and flawed things in general, are more relatable, and you want to take care of them more, and they're just more entertaining overall. They're not boring. They're not neutral cats that just do the same thing over and over again. Like, the odd quirks and weird things that the cats do that we have make them who they are. It makes them interesting, it makes them different, and it makes them just more likable and more relatable because they're so odd. And we definitely push that envelope with Mew-Genics. There's a lot of odd attributes the cats can have and act and react, and the animations and everything. There's so many different aspects of them that really push that oddness, that I think that makes them more likable. It makes them more unique.
That must be tough to design a goal, like an end goal around that then. Wouldn't it be? Or am I...
It wasn't. It's not as tough because a lot of it's like, you can manipulate. Well, okay. Eventually, as you go, you get drugs and stuff like that to manipulate cats, the way they act and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But you still got to kind of bend to the way that they want to do things. You'll get a better picture of it once the game's out. But it's the goals and stuff that you have to do are more set goals by these different people that want certain things, and when you give them those certain things, then you're rewarded with a more you expand the gameplay essentially. Like kind of similar to Isaac, where like the more you play, the more items you kind of unlock.
Oh right, yeah.
It's similar to that.
Okay, all right. So I mean, we got you guys here, and I kind of want to wind down a little bit. What's your thought on the iPad now as you're kind of tooling around with Mew-Genics? Like, do you have like a working build or anything like that, or is that still kind of like, is PC version like the lead SKU?
Yeah, well, I develop on PC, and I kind of don't like Xcode, so...
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
Awesome. Yeah, they really kind of messed it up after... I think the last one I used was 3, and that one was good. Well, I mean, it's as good as it could be. But, yeah, we don't have, like, a working iPad build or anything like that. My engine runs on the iPad, but it hasn't been the focus. Like, the focus is actually getting the game ready to work. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, then we'll take it over to the iPad and stuff.
And are you looking to launch on everything at once?
Yes, or as close to at once as possible, because I don't want another situation where it's like, I don't want another Meat Boy situation, basically. I don't want to go through crazy work to launch one platform and then have a month to do another one. Like, right. I want them all to be done before one comes out.
All right.
Cool.
So we cleared the air. You guys love the iPhone, love the iPad, big fans of the App Store.
It's filled with nothing but great games.
There are some great games in there. Like, it's actually nice to see. Okay, this is what I like about the iPad, the App Store in general. It's been interesting to see things adapt and get pushed around as time has passed. Like you, for the first thing you saw is all games dropped to $1 essentially, but now things have kind of eased up a bit. Yeah. And there's almost like this like bottom level where it's. I think in a lot of people's minds they know that a 99-cent game is kind of a throwaway game, and it's like they've accepted that, or they've accepted that a 99-cent game or freemium game is a game that you're going to have to spend money on to really go anywhere you want to go in it, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed that this kind of like lowest common denominator, what the App Store is kind of flooded with right now, just like these average or below average games that are just time wasters. Yeah. There's so many of them that when a game comes out that's pretty good, it does really well. And that's
they rally.
Like people actually want games that are games that have like depth to them, that that you can play for an extended period of time, that progress, that have more to offer than just like put in your credit card number and here's some money. Like you don't even know. Like, we're looking at this design and we're seeing, everybody sees a money sign and a screenshot of Mew-Genics. I've seen this comment so many times, and they assume that they're going to have to pay for that money.
Oh, I saw that too. Yeah, a comment on our thread.
No.
It's wrong. If you do that in your game, if you at any point say, here, you can just pay to get the stuff that you would work for in-game, actually gameplay-wise, you're admitting to yourself and everybody else that you're not a game designer. You're a businessman that wants to make money, and you've basically thrown away any actual design to what you're doing. You've just thrown it out the window. There's no point in...
You actually try to squelch your design to a point where it will be more enticing for a person to pay than it will be to play.
Yeah, and that's bad design. It's just bad design. It's not what games are about. Like, there's you just kill risk reward. Like, just imagine if well, no, it's a good reason. It's a good example of like the old live systems in Mario and like the latest Mario. Okay, you compare the two. You've got a classic game like Mario that was really difficult and rewarding, and it felt really good to get really far in it because you had a limited life set. And then you go to the new ones, and everybody in the world can beat the newest Mario because you got infinite lives, infinite continues. It's just free, basically. You can get to the end. Most games are like this now, and there's no actual, you don't feel rewarded, and you don't feel like you've completed something difficult until you get to like the later, really difficult ones that unlock after you beat the game. Stuff like that. And what they're doing with a lot of games like this now is you're throwing away any kind of sense of accomplishment in anything. You feel like you've done something. You've done something. You sat down and you spent hours doing something. But in the end, you don't feel like you've done anything that anybody else in the world can't do. Put in your credit card and spend some money. Yeah. And that's just a bad direction for video games to head. And we want to make it we want to put it out there as much as possible that, like, we almost want to take note of, like, at this point, we could have asked you for your credit card, but we didn't. Please keep that in mind.
But also, that's not going to be in the game because we're not douchebags. As much as everyone thinks we're douchebags, we're really not douchebags. Well, I'm not.
I'm probably more of a douchebag than Tommy is, but everybody thinks he's a douchebag.
Yeah, everybody fucking hates me, and I guess it's fine. I guess it's feelings mutual now, I guess.
I'm trying not to end on a bummer note. Let's talk about how great Mew-Genics is going to be. 2013, it's going to be a fantastic year. You guys are going to kill it, right?
Of course. The internet's a wonderful place to build thought-provoking conversation about a variety of topics.
I have to tell you, like, for realsies here, I am much more excited for Mew-Genics. Just hearing you describe how you're going to give kind of like these broken systems an actual voice, I think that's really neat. Because you play SimCity now or whatever, something breaks, you just delete it. You're done.
Okay,
whatever.
Right, you can play SimCity, but don't change.
Yeah, that's true. When you could actually get in 4 days after the fact to play your $60, $80 game, depending if you got the deluxe edition like the idiot that I am. Something breaks, your cold runs out, whatever, you're done. You just delete it. You move on, right? And I like that part of Mew-Genics, man. That's really cool. Good luck on the project, guys.
I think it'll be really fun and really interesting, regardless of how it turns out. I think there's a lot of aspects of the game that we're both pretty proud of design-wise that are kind of hard decisions to make because they're harsh decisions. Like working on a cat for a really long time and the cat aging and knowing that if you keep taking that cat out of its cryo cube and you keep using that cat, eventually that cat's going to pass away and you can't get that cat back. You can't undo your save. You can't just turn off the system. It's not coming back. And there's just certain consequences to that makes something more rewarding, more interesting, just more challenging, just different. It's just more like real life consequences, and I think that might be what makes it extra special and might push it. And maybe people will appreciate it, maybe they won't. Who knows? But it'll be fun to kind of go there and see where we kind of come out. It'll be nice if it turns out people really like this and this is like a thing that everybody loves. That would be really great because I think it'll make us at least feel like we made the right decisions and went the right direction. I also want to thank people out there who correct people when they're misinformed in comment sections. Like, we try not to read this sort of stuff, but end up, at certain times you want, because you want to have some idea of what people think when, news stories come out.
Right.
But I know we have fans out there who will actually correct people who say things that are completely wrong or misinformed. And I want to thank you, because it really does help, because, you can't jump in and say, you know what? I didn't say that. It's never good. And it's always nice when someone just says, that's not true. So thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us this week, guys. I learned a lot about Mew-Genics. It was rad. Learned a lot about what you guys think about the App Store. Really appreciate you guys coming out.
We had a rad time.
It was fun. Thank you for having us.